All right, Ben, isn't that a wonderful? What I love about this question for our audience, and what you and I can riff it now, is here you have someone who's diligently gone and accumulated 5 investment properties plus their own home, paid it off, little bit of debt, but still not super clear on what the end game is. Should I be living off the equity? Should we be talking about what you and I have talked about for the last couple of questions around the annuity income rather than living off the equity? So there's lots here, but what I hope this question serves as a timely reminder for our audience who are thinking about investing or just in that early stage of accumulation, just because you have a number of properties doesn't necessarily mean all the answers suddenly appear. You've got to have some intention and some strategy and a very, very clear North Star that you're heading towards, or you might end up like Matt, who's on paper in a reasonably great position here, but still got unanswered questions that form the basis of where they end up.
Yeah, so ultimately what we're talking about here is a question of living off equity. Well, I'm not sure that well, I don't know what Matt and his family's cash flow analysis story is here, but this is a little bit of rinse and repeat in terms of what we heard from Rolf before, and that is, so Matt and, if you've got a better, a significant other and a family member, sit down and I want you to go through this exercise. I want you to write down a list of essential spending going forward. Okay, so get all of the things that you know are a lock for you in terms of essential spending that make you happy. Then I want you to overlay that with other things that are discretionary spending. And now you might do what we do inside More and what we teach in Money Smarts is that some of those expense items are going to have essential and discretionary elements, like holidays is a classic one. So we want to commit to at least $10,000 a year as the essential, but our discretionary might be another 10 or whatever that looks like. Now, that's where we're going to start with. So we literally then need to know exactly how much we need to cover the lifestyle by design that we want to live. Then we're going to start to work through the next phase of the question is, where is this money going to come from? So looking at the cash flows we've got coming off those properties, looking at our holding costs and commitments, looking at how they've performed and the maintenance and all of those other things, where is that going to come from? And then it's a calculation of how much more do I need now? So you go through the exercise. Do we have enough of that passive income coming in to be able to accommodate that, or do we need a little more? And how much more time do I need to work on? You said you're happy to work for a couple more years. So this is a classic case of me saying to someone like Matt, this is impossible. Or no, I shouldn't say it's not impossible. You could probably do rough calculations on the back of an envelope, but they would be I wouldn't want to be deciding my future on rough calculations. For me, this is possible to answer in significant detail when you actually do cash flow analysis and when you make the invisible visible, and the power of running models where you're able to sort of say every month over the next 20 or 30 years, you can allocate either one-off costs or ongoing costs associated with that. And then what you do is you've got your what-if models, and then you're able to run through a couple of those scenarios. And then really, you've got line of sight on planning to become what you plan to become. And that is that's mastery of lifestyle by design. And so if you're not able to do that, it's worth paying several grand to get someone to be that accountability partner, to be able to do that modeling for you. And then you will then know in terms of, can I hold on to all these properties, and do I need to liquidate any of them? Do I have any goodwill in my business that I can also transfer into the sale of that over time? Because what a lot of people don't realise, Bryce, is when they talk about living off the equity, there is, if rents keep going up and costs keep coming down, over time, those properties pay for themselves. But let's say there's a situation where they don't. Let's say interest rates keep going up higher and costs keep going up higher, and you can't do that. Well, as funds start to evaporate out of your retirement fund, how we do our models, and we talk about this in the book, and we also, verbatim talk about this in terms of how we're doing models for clients. We have a rough default that when cash balances and cash reserves get down to $100,000, we might liquidate one of those properties. And that just then builds up another several hundred thousand of buffer. And rather than sort of thinking that you've got to sell all the properties, all of a sudden, let's say hypothetically that I only just needed one property to be sold out of the 5 that they built up. And all of a sudden now the others are accumulating and they're actually going forward. So you can't spend as much money as you earn, which is obviously the beautiful models that we like to show and demonstrate to our clients. So if we're putting our gloves on and being an advisor to you, that's the type of advisor that you want to be seeing, because you want to be able to do those modelings. You want to be doing those what if situations. And then you have huge amounts of power in that peace of mind, knowing what your next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years look like. That is the greatest feeling of all. I can tell you that from personal experience. When you actually do a model and you have line of sight on your situation, it's so peaceful and empowering. It changes your mindset, does all these wonderful things that help you become happier and better at living rather than worrying about the money story. So there really is a lot to be on offer here for someone like Matt to actually get some professional advice and get that line of sight on what that future looks like for him and potentially his significant other and potentially the kids as well.
I think that's important, Ben, because people can project, okay, 5 investment properties already full. That's great. You know, the 73% of all property investors stop at 1, and here's Matt and his family got 5, right? But what we don't know is, wants to step away from the business in the next 5 years, right? We don't know how successful that business is. And if you have got to become an outlier and bought 5 investment properties, we could maybe make a reasonable assumption that it's spitting off some good cash flow to enable them to be able to do that and retire out that debt. We've got no idea what the age profile is here. But is the business still going to, when he says step away from the business, didn't say sell it, just said step away. So what's not known here is, based on their lifestyle goals and what they actually want, despite the fact that they are an outlier, you don't know whether 1 or 2 more investment properties, based on the resources that they have, can still allow them to go to another level. Because who knows, this particular family might be someone who just wants to make as much money as they can so they can give it away to as many people as they can. And we do not know the motivations and energies, and we can all project assumptions onto them. But to your point around what the planning process can do, we've got someone who's on paper presents as very, very successful in this game that we're talking about, and yet is not super clear on what the end game is. And so therefore, I said it at the top of the message, I'll say it again, it serves as a wonderfully powerful illustrative question for everyone in this community to know that just because, so not investing is one category, but being an investor but not super clear on the North Star still means that there's further refining to the strategy that can go along here. So, Matt, I think you've got yourself into a wonderful position, but I think the next step for you is to be able to perform those powerful what-if analysis for you, so that you can actually stand in the fork in the road and go, if I go down that path, here's my options. If I go down this path, here's my options. Because there's 4 categories of expenses, Ben, that we have talked to and taught in our Money Smart system. It's bills and spending is category 1, discretionary spend is category 2, investment costs is category 3, and loan payments is category 4. Well, let's break that down. Number 4, loan payments. We own our own home. So unless there's cars and boats and caravans, there's a reasonable assumption that that's close to nil. Investment costs, we don't know about any other alternative investments they have, but their cost to service the investment properties from an interest perspective is getting quite minimal. So it's kind of leaving those 2 top categories of bills and spending and discretionary spend. Now, they might go to Whistler every winter, Ben. We don't know. Or they might be campers who love to go down the road to Anglesea for camping. So there's a bit to know here. But the beautiful part about this is there's so much potential to refine based on getting super clear line of sight around what is possible for you. And that can generally be done on paper for a lot of people in terms of paper trading their way from this point forward, so they make the right moves, because stepping away from the business sounds like it's a big goal here for Matt and assuming his family. So it's important that they know what's the right step to do, because they've done the hard yards to get themselves in this position. But
yeah, they have. I mean, ultimately, Matt and family, if that's the case, they've got to be excited about the free time, the time that they're going to free up because they've done the hard yards early. And I think that should give him some confidence to know that if he does get a proper piece of advice, then he should be able to know exactly what he needs to do next and put that in the right sequential order. And then all, as I said, that's a pretty empowering position to be in when you know sort of what the future holds for you.
And folks, for those of you playing along at home, living off the equity, there's really only two options to do that. You harvest the equity, which means you borrow against your equity and live off the borrowings, or you just sell the properties down and harvest the equity that comes from that over time. And in our Nirvana, you wouldn't do either of those two. You would be in a position where the cash flow from the rents is what you are able to fund your lifestyle. So very good, Matt. Thank you for your question. Hopefully our audience has, it's a big theme, Ben. We always get the exit strategy questions. We always get the what if we start late questions. So it's always nice to revisit some of these questions. So we thank those folks, and remember to reach out. We'll give you a copy of Start and Build.